Liz Marie, welcome to Get Shit Done.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm very excited because this is our first conversation around one of our new segments, Founder Confessions, and we heard from a lot of our audience in this time. So, painting the picture here, it is July 2025. We have now been almost half the year in the craziness that is the USA. And
Mm.
even if you're not in the USA, everyone's feeling it. I think people are exhausted by everything right now. And so what we heard from our audience was, hey, I love all the business stuff, but also it's a lot of these taboo things that people know happens in business or they've heard about it, but no one really talks about it out loud.
Yeah.
And one in particular that is very fucking common is co-founder breakups. And I have gone through two. And Liz Marie is my first co-founder breakup. And that's why I'm really excited for her to be here and us talk about our experiences and what it was like on each of our sides. Because a lot of times I think when you're hearing behind closed doors from people, it's one person's perspective.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what a special place we can be in that we can have both of our perspectives here and what we think what happened on both sides. So I'm really excited you're here. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm excited to hear it too because I mean we'll get into it, but I think that we're such in a good place, but we
Mhm.
never really I mean we had a conversation, but we didn't get too into it, so we're gonna get into it now.
Yeah, I think we're still apologize to each other,
Yeah.
but I don't think we went through what was going on, or what did you think? So I'm really excited. I think as you all are going to hear us learn new things as we talk about this on the fly.
Hmm.
So, um, I would like to do a check-in first. If you could, if you could think of one word to express how you're feeling in this moment, what would that one word be?
Joyful.
I love it. Why joyful? She's in Michigan right now.
I just feel like, and I was talking about this with my husband the other day. It's like how many little things had to come to pass for us to get together and have our little daughter. And also, I thought, and how many little things had to happen for me to have the business that I have right now, which I'm really happy with. So it's sort of like, oh. I feel joyful and happy that all of these little crazy things happened and I'm in the place that I'm in right now and feeling joyful about that.
I love that. Joyful. I would say I'm meh, but enjoy. Like I said this to our community yesterday. We had our like monthly community coaching, and there was a couple of us that are like, it's a meh where it's like nothing's bad, but I'm just not like really excited about anything or really down about anything. It's
Yeah.
just like really, which actually I'm grateful for, but I'm trying to process because so much of my life has been in not realizing me chasing after these highs. And then
Hmm.
with that, you get really low lows where I'm just like, I'm about to be 35. Like, I don't want this anymore. I want peace. And peace to me doesn't need to be super excited, big wins all the time. I'm just like, honestly, yeah, I just want steadiness. And I think the universe is giving me that. And I'm realizing I'm not comfortable with it yet.
Mm.
And I guess actually it's not the word's not I think I was lacking comfort in it a couple months ago. Now I'm in a place where I don't know what to do with it yet. So it's just like there. So nothing's wrong. It's just
Yeah.
meh. Whatever.
Yeah. I
Whatever.
get that.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I want to take it back like we always do with all of our guests. And just talk about how the heck we met and ended up in business together. So I would love to hear from your side of it because I know where we met. I just don't remember exactly how we met. So I want to see if
Oh
you
my gosh.
remember. I know exactly where we met, like the place we met in undergrad, but I don't remember
I
how.
I think you'll say something different from me because I have a memory from before we kind of became friends. we were in the same group of, people. Like we had friends in common. And the first time that I met you, it was at a friend's apartment or
That sounds
dorm
about right.
apartment, something. And you were
Hmm.
making like a bolognese sauce and you were putting sugar in it, and I was scandalized.
Ah, that sounds so like yes, you gotta
And
sweeten it.
so that is my first memory of you. And then, like months went by, or I don't even remember how long, and you were sort of there, and I would see you around. But then we, oh, I know. This, for me, this is the time that we hung out. You were organizing a photo shoot for the fashion magazine
Yes. Okay.
and I'm not sure why you asked me to be in it.
Oh, I have an
Like,
answer for that. Yeah.
and I was in it, and then we did another one, and this magazine ended up being Alex's photo shoot with Liz Marie as
That sounds about right.
um so, and I feel like that was like our first like project. Like we took over this poor little magazine, didn't stand a chance.
No, they are
And
so welcome. We brought them the glow up.
my mom still has the magazine
I
if
love
if
it.
you want to revisit that.
Yes, Mama Frico, I love it.
So that was like the first time that we hung out and we like did something together. And from there, we kept doing these like little projects and like little things together. That's my recollection.
That okay, that is good. I remember the photo shoot. The bolognese sauce, that makes sense. I don't remember it, but it's kind of like with pizza. My family, we love Papa John's. Like the owner sucks and is like a bigot, but everyone has their like guilty pleasure. That's one of mine when I have pizza because it's sweet sauce. I
Oh,
like sweet sauce. And so like when you're a broke college student, pasta is so easy to just like,
essential.
oh my God, like to make you feel like you're fancy, to be like, I am having Italian food, not just top ramen. And then my way of like being like, oh, I'm about to fuck it up is I'm gonna put a little sugar in it. Um, which for
You
some
were so serious.
I'm
And
serious.
basil, and then aggressively adding basil to
Yes,
it. I remember,
aggressively.
yeah.
Yes, that sounds like the 20 something year old Alex, 20
Yeah.
1920. And yeah, that's on brand. And a lot of like also like I thought it was weird being in
Did you say
Chicago.
1920,
19 or 20.
19? No, this was way before. This was 2010.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay. No, you're right. Okay.
I mean, if the audience wants to believe I'm 21,
That's great.
that's great, but it was 2010-ish,
Okay, 2010.
2009 or 2010, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, yeah, that's about in the same range. Yeah, so that was my way. That was definitely my way. And then also in Chicago, like black folks bring spaghetti to the barbecue, which is so new to me coming from the West Coast. But they put sugar in it. That's something I knew. Maybe it's a black thing. But with the magazine, yes, I do remember that photo shoot. And I just remember I'm just like I remember you had a unique sense of style, which we'll get into in terms of going into business together. And I was like, I like this. She does like interesting colors. It's bold, and you have a different because I feel like when we did become friends, like we became known we went to University of Chicago on campus. We were just like goofs, but also very stylish, and that's what we were known for. And it was just like we were both equally like out there and fun, but you were just a chiller version where I was just like boom in your face and you were like, I need to warm up and then I'm gonna be extra.
Yeah.
And I
I
was
still
like,
am that way.
yes, you still are. So I'm just like, oh, this is a good match. I'm like, I like her style. She's a good time. Go with the flow. And then I do remember, so when we became friends, we started hanging out. And I remember the specific moment we were on the 6 bus because we used to go and do thrift shopping in
Hmm.
Chicago, which University of Chicago, for people who aren't familiar, it is, and maybe it's probably different now, but this was pre-Uber. So you needed to take a bus to get into the city
A long
and
bus.
a long bus and just to get in. So we were making field trips out of it and we would come back with all of these amazing treasures. And I just remember people on campus would come up to us and be like, "Where are you guys shopping?" We were known for being
Yeah.
stylish. And people would ask us to take them. And we were like, "We're not, this is too much. We're not taking you on field trips." to But then I do remember, and I would love to hear what your memory of this. I do remember us being on the bus back and talking about it. Like people are keep asking us this, but what are they really wanting? And then that got us into the idea for the business that we started together. But would love your thoughts on like how it happened.
It was definitely, I don't remember the bus ride because I feel like there were so many and we talked about a lot of crazy stuff, but it makes sense. Definitely from the thrifting, which that was new to me. You introduced me to thrifting and I was like, oh my God, like all of this, like crazy, not crazy stuff, but like stuff that you don't see everywhere. And that was the time of Forever 21 where everyone was wearing the same going out top.
Oh God, the
Uh,
2010s too. You're like,
Yep. So the
the OC
peplum,
look.
yeah, everyone was wearing the same, Forever 21 look. And I grew up sort of being able to have my own style. My dad was very into like personal style and he was like, he had all of his stuff like tailor made and things like that and he would take me. I was a bougie little kid, like I had a little
We love
designer for
that.
when we had weddings and things like that and I would go and pick up the fabric and that's why I got into design as well when we were in New Chicago. If someone is listening from New Chicago, they're gonna be like, what the heck are these two talking about? They did not go to New Chicago.
Every time
But
I meet people, they're always just like, I think it might be a little different now, but
yeah, I think
University of
it's different
Chicago
now.
is known for when we were there, the fucking smartest but most socially awkward kids you will
Yeah.
ever meet. So then you meet people like us and they're just like, no, you didn't.
Yeah. And you were doing what? Designing something?
Yeah.
You're lying. But anyways, there we were. And I thrifting was really cool because you find all of this like older stuff, like unique things. And I was, really excited about that. And as you said, we started talking like what do people really want out of this? And that's where it started. And then we talked about like the community aspect of it, of sharing, like, oh, I found this, you found that, I have this, you have that. Um, because we did that a little bit too. We would like switch things, like if something didn't fit you or didn't fit me after we like hauled a bunch of like 3 bags worth of stuff, we would like switch or like switch with friends and things like that. So there was a little bit of that, like the community aspect of it. And we were in an environment too where in U Chicago, a lot of people were doing startups. A lot of people were doing tech startups. So it was that time, and we were thinking, well, how do we take this online? Like, how do we take this experience online? So that's what
Remember.
my key memory is like, how do we digitalize this experience?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. This is why I say to founders, timing matters.
Yeah,
We graduated 2012. That means we got into school 2008. Our class was the first super entrepreneurial class at U Chicago. I will
yeah,
fight someone on that. And actually, I don't think we have to fight anyone on it. It
yeah,
was, we got into school, we're told you go to these fancy schools and you're going to be good. Then we see all these people graduating and they can't even get a job after spending all this
yeah,
money going to this fancy school. So I think a lot of us were like, we got 4 years to figure some shit out. So then that's the time. I mean, the iPhone came out in 2007, so a year before we got to school. So then you
yeah,
have tech, and then now all these entrepreneurial young people being like, we have to, this is very millennial. It's like, we were sold a lie. This is a
Yeah.
lie. We had to figure it out ourselves.
Yeah.
And so the timing of it, and then to your point from the business model perspective, I do remember being like, what are they really asking for? And we were starting the approach was a kind of the Facebook approach where they're like, we're going to start with one school. So it was like, let's
Yeah.
start with one school, U Chicago. And for the women who want new fresh finds, but maybe they're broke and can't just buy stuff, we are
Yeah.
going to then enable them to swap things with each other. And also, I'm going to give us fucking kudos because we were so ahead of our time. And I tell people this
Listen,
all the time, where it's just like, just because you're first to market doesn't mean you're going to win. It's usually you create room for new people to come in to
yeah.
learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
But we were dealing with virtual currency, which people now call crypto
I
in
know.
2010.
I think about that all the time.
We're innovators, Frico. We're
I
innovators.
I think about our little coins.
Yes.
And remember we had that because at the time you needed a tech co-founder.
Yep,
And
which
we
we
found it.
found.
We
Yep.
found there was like two in school. And
Yes.
we found one and we convinced him. I wonder how we did it.
Shout out to
But
Chris. Thanks, Chris.
yeah, thanks, Chris. But I feel like we had this conversation around the how are people gonna swap? And that was like one of the biggest conversations around this whole thing because you can't swap. And I remember saying something along the lines, it's like, we're not in medieval times. Like, I'm not gonna trade your goat for a chicken because I have a goat and
Period.
maybe I don't have a chicken.
You're right.
We need a currency that
Yeah.
people like, change, like it goes to the market. And he was like, no, that's too complicated, or someone was like, no, 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 no. And that was like a source of conflict at the time, and like this little thing, and it was, yeah,
But it was a
listen,
great idea.
Alex, we could have had a crypto, like, can you imagine?
We could
We
have
could have
been
done
Bitcoin.
it.
You know what? They
Bitcoin.
were watching us. You know what I'm
Yeah, they
saying? We
were
don't even.
listening in
They
her
were listening.
apartment.
They were listening in. Freak weirdos. Anyways, no, you're right. And so we had this idea, and we're like, okay, let's go after it. And we were around. I think we were the only women. We were part of this entrepreneurial club. I think we're the
Kairos.
only Kairos, which
Yeah.
is so funny because now UFC has like a VC fund attached to it. I'm like, you're welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome to new students. That was
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
But there was maybe 10 of us, and all of us
Yeah.
went on to build startups, be entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
recognized by the White House, raise money, all these different things. And so, how do you remember us deciding, like, okay, we have this idea. What are our roles? How did we decide who's going to do what?
I think it was always sort of like we kind of not decided, but we kind of like was like, oh, Liz is the creative one and Alex is the business one. It was like I was creative spice and you were business spice, and that was it, and that was our personality.
Period. That is so, so true. Okay, so you already started talking about this. Like, we start talking, bringing the team together. Excuse me. Obviously, you and I as the co-founders, and we're like, we need a technical component. We found our CTO, Chris. Here's where I think I personally screwed up, and maybe one of the breakdowns too. I always tell people, like, being a 19-year-old CEO, you just go and hire all your friends. I would say the best decision we made on a team member was our CTO, like, hands down. But then it's like, oh, who do I know? I'm going to select these people to do business development. And it's like, but they ain't doing nothing, and because they don't know it, right? And you're just
Yeah.
expecting them to figure it out. That's what I do remember, is just like, okay, we're coming together to put things together. And I know I personally was like, oh, this person could do this and this person could do that, but it wasn't strategic.
No. Yeah. I remember that. And I remember thinking, what are all these people doing here?
Who are you?
Who
Who are
are you?
you?
How did you get here? And I think I think this also kind of fed into like, because I was like reflecting, I was like, how did I feel towards the end when things started to like fall apart? And I think the main emotion was overwhelmed. And I feel like that that was like a part of it, just like not having to agree with people that didn't share your vision or your passion for the project as much as you did. And it's hard enough to agree with one person, three people, but then it's like, then you have other opinions, which is, it can be good, and you need that when you're a little bit bigger. But when you're starting, I think there is a benefit to like being very lean and just
Mm-hmm.
attacking something. And once you validate your idea and you validate the market a little bit, so you're not like a crazy person going around chasing whatever waterfalls. Once you have that, like there is benefit into like maybe not going at it alone, but having a very compact unit to go after it. So,
Yeah.
and I think, as you said, things were a little,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like, now and there's still so much bullshit around entrepreneurship, but even then it was just like you're figuring it out. So you're kind of trying to work off of what you've seen people say is successful,
yeah.
reading all of the articles from Entrepreneur Mag or Inc. And now I think back, I'm like, what a fucking waste of time. Like, do not tell me to wake up at 5 a.m. because that's what successful people do. I'm gonna wake up at 8 or 9, bitch. Like, what are we talking? But now I know.
Yeah.
So one of
Yeah,
the
now we know.
things, yeah, I'm like, no, you're not waking me up at 5 a.m. Only for a cheap flight. But I just remember, I'm like, oh, that's what all these successful companies are doing. They're raising all this money and then they're going on and they're getting these
Yeah.
teams. But I know we're ping ponging. I want to go back because the rest of this is going to be about how the fuck did this all break down?
Yeah.
Right.
What had happened?
What happened was, but I want to start with we had this idea, created this platform to enable women to swap their fashionable items on campuses. We were starting with ours with the intention to scaling it to other campuses, but getting it right at our campus first. And then instead of it being like just swap with each other, you're going to opt in and subscribe to a virtual currency, which then gives you the coins or whatever you need
Yeah.
to then swap with other people. What do you feel we did really well before we get into all the shit that we did not well?
I think the system that you just described now, it still sounds good. I
It sounds
mean,
amazing. Good for us.
good for us. One thing that I remember like making the sketches for the profile and like all of those things. Like I think we did that well, like organizing how things would look like and coming up with the system and thinking about, what was at the core of it, and I think we did carry that, like we wanted people to find cool things at a low price or I mean in some cases free because you would put out stuff that maybe you didn't want to wear anymore. And that's something, there was like that accessibility of it that I think was very special. Like we weren't trying to make money off of it, which is a great question. How were we gonna make money? I don't remember.
From the subscriptions, like from
From the
people opting
subscription.
in.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I was like, how did we
How did
how
we make
did
money?
we make? But that wasn't, there was like, yeah, there was like this aspect of, I don't know,
Yeah.
democracy of fashion type
Yeah,
of
we
thing.
were
And that was,
democratizing.
yeah, so that was cool. And I think we did that very well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think to your point of like you being creative spice, me being business spice, I think what we did well that we'll probably talk about later of like also probably being needing to communicate it better because I think what we did well was like being able to like, this is your lane and this is my lane.
Yeah.
Because with co-founders, sometimes I think the problem with people finding co-founders is they're not finding their compliments. And
Yeah.
so while I'm very creative, I'm not creative in the way that you are. So you're good at like the visualizations and all of that. I'm good with like, here's the abstract and let me tell someone about it. And then I can really push it ahead, get the buy-in from people. Like vividly remember this, my first potential investor call. We were at one of our friends' places, and I'm just calling a family friend, and like I'm just pitching them, and I have no idea how to pitch, but for some reason it just came out of me
Okay.
very
Yeah.
fluidly. And then you both looked at me like, where the fuck did that come from? I'm like, I don't know, you know? And so it was kind of nice to be like, oh, I really thrive in this space. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's what we did well, is like we actually did well at being complementary versus having overlap, even though we were friends. But I would like to get into we had a great idea. We
Yeah.
had a great system. We weren't trying to do the most. It was very
Yeah.
streamlined. We were in our lanes, but then shit starts to break down. So I would like to hear from your perspective. What do you think was like for you and your perspective, the first moments where you're like, oh, shit doesn't feel right?
I think it was those meetings that we were going back and forth, things that I thought were like simple things, and I'm someone who, and I've learned to use this to my advantage. I can easily identify the quickest way out. And I can
You're
easily
going to keep it simple.
identify, yeah, I can easily identify what I'm gonna get the most bang for my buck in terms of like tasks, work, initiatives, and I use this a lot, like it's helped me a lot in business. I can quickly identify what's gonna benefit me the most and the easiest way to get from A to B. And when people around me are not like wanna waste time like talking like in circles, it really frustrates me. And I started to become frustrated with going around circles and like going back and forth. And to your point of having people that were, just there because at the time people had these like teams. I was like, oh well, I have a COO, a CTO, a CFO, a CMMO, like ABCDEFG.
Yeah.
And you don't need that. We
No, you
didn't need
don't.
it.
We didn't. We did not need it.
And I think but you can't like overstep because you're working in a team, so you don't want to be rude and be like, let's just do it my way, because that's not the way you get things done in a team. So it was like I couldn't like assert my I am also like a more like quiet person, and I didn't want to. It's not that I can't. I can. I just don't want to be in an environment where I have to be like, no, like we're doing it this way because it's better. Like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it was like a lot of that, and but also there was like a difference in like gears because we operate in different gears. Like I'm more of a steady builder, like steady going to do. You are a forceful, just bursts. And I think we didn't communicate that difference well enough to like make it make it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree. That's what I meant earlier. It's like around knowing your lane, but communicating what does that look like in the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no, I agree with you. My side of it was, it felt like, because I am more like, I decide I'm doing something, we're going after it, and I'm going to push us ahead to make it happen. And so I felt like, okay, I'm trying to manage all the moving parts and the moving people, and it's not feeling right, but I also feel like no one's really saying anything. So I'm just like, something's not feeling right, but I feel like I'm kind of alone in this. And because we're not communicating, right? And
Yeah.
so I would say on my end, it felt like as a CEO, I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to, but also I want my co-founder to say something.
Yeah.
And when I think about like when we did get to the breakdown pieces of it, and if I like for me on my end, I know that I started feeling a little resentful because I was like,
Hmm.
I feel like I'm kind of alone and we're not, yeah, we're not getting the things done that we need. Because what it felt like to me on my end was you're probably experiencing the frustration you experience, and then it felt like you were slowly tapping out, but
Yeah.
not saying it. And
Yeah.
so then I remember vividly us sitting down at this restaurant, I think it's a Thai restaurant up below where we lived, and
Type
give
55. Type
Thai
55.
55, real cute.
Yeah.
Also, to give people context too, this is a very important part for our breakdown.
We were
We were
roommates.
roommates, we were best friends, and we went into business together. And we
Yeah.
were 19.
Yeah.
That's a
I
lot.
was 18.
Yeah, yeah, you were 18. I was 19. And I'm just like, this is, yeah, you're 91. So this is a lot happening
A
at
lot.
once. And we're kids. Like, we're not even
Hmm.
legally drinking age yet. So all these things that we can say now, like I don't
Yeah.
think we had the tools to communicate it. And so
Yeah.
while we can say right now, like, yeah, I needed you to communicate it. I just remember we
Yeah.
went to Thai 55 and I'm expressing this frustration and I'm like checking in with you, like, what do you want? Is this
Yeah.
something you want? And to your point around like our styles, I'm more like, hey, what's this thing? And I think for you, it was just like you hadn't figured it out yet because you're still trying to process.
Yeah.
And then what I saw was like, well, nothing's changing. We're having these check-ins and it seems everything's fine, but it's clearly not because it's not changing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, like, how did that feel?
I think, and this was, yeah, all of this, it felt to me confusing because I I think there was like a lot of noise and there wasn't like a clear finish line.
Yeah,
So, and I'm someone who, when I see the goal, I just like keep going like at my pace and I go. But when that is clear, I'm like, huh, let me take a step back because I don't want to go towards a direction that is not the direction. And because there were like there were like other people, I'm like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are we doing? There was a lot of that of like, well, I'm just gonna take a moment to see where we're going before I just start doing a lot of stuff that is useless. Also, for other more content of like this situation, at the time, my dad was not like doing well health-wise, and very shortly after all of this, he passed away. So there was like a personal part of it, which is something that in business we pretend like life doesn't affect, how the decisions that we're making in business, how we act with other people, and what is happening. So I think also having the maturity to understand how emotionally, I wasn't there 100% because I was dealing with everything else. Also going through college, writing those essays,
those
and
essays, Lord have
and doing
mercy.
problem sets and all of that. So it was a lot of high stakes things going on, like very emotional time in my life, and I wasn't able to communicate to you like, hey, I feel like we've lost our direction a little bit. I'm not clear. Also, I'm going through a lot of stuff and I'm not here 100% to, push forward the way that you're pushing forward. Because that's how I felt too. Like you were pushing forward, but I wasn't 100% sure what. where we were going and what the end goal was. And I was, pulling back emotionally because I had all of this stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just remember, and to your point, like, yeah, I think I was still figuring out too, like, what is this going to look like? But I think I was okay with, I don't fucking know. And also, again, it's context, who were we around? And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
what the guys are doing.
Yeah.
Now I
They
know
did it
better.
already. Yeah.
They're doing it and they're getting funding and they're getting this stuff. But now I know better. It's like, this is why I think women do pretty well in business, is because we are very goal oriented and we have a
Yeah.
focus. At the time, I was like, I don't know what I don't know. So it was just like, I know that we're trying to build this platform, how to prioritize and all of that. That I didn't understand. And to your point, it's like hindsight's 2020. And I also think I gave this analogy the other day of people, like when people get on like social media and they're like in the moment and like, let me cry on camera because this is authentic. This is, I want everyone to just show. I
Yeah.
truly believe some of those things, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with crying and sharing those emotions
Yeah.
with people, but it's like the Adele effect to me. What I love about Adele, she puts and drops an album for each age, but when she drops it, she's gotten through that age and now she can reflect,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like woulda, coulda, shoulda. Like you could have, but I'm like, could you? You're in the stuff. So how do you know to sort it out? I
Yeah.
know I'm the type of person, like when people want to have an argument with me, I'm like, you don't want me to be in it in that moment because I'm just going to say some reactive stuff. I need a moment to step away. I need to reflect to like see how I feel. So then, you're going through this. We're both getting frustrated on both sides. We're not able to communicate. When do you think was like the final breakdown for you?
I can't say that I remember exactly
I can't
because I
either.
feel like it's sort of like dissolved. Like it's sort of just, and I think I think maybe I said like, "Hey, I can't do this." Maybe, I think.
I
I don't
can't I
remember.
can't
I
remember.
can't remember.
I think you're right. It was more of a over time dissolving. And then
Yeah.
I think there was enough resentment that built up where we're just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's what happened.
Okay. So we're there. Mind you, everyone, we still live together. Um, through this process, what do you feel was the most hurtful thing for you?
I I think for sure the most hurtful thing was the loss of the friendship at the time. That was very painful.
Yeah. And I'm going to actually give Liz Marie more credit here. I feel like she's being very kind. So one of my best friends from college, Kareem. I remember he told me this in college. He was like, Alex, you love very hard. He was like, you like people, you don't love everybody. But he was like, when you do hard. And so when there is a breakdown with the people I really care about and I feel like I'm wronged, I become very cold. And this is something I've had to learn a lot through therapy, to be like, don't weaponize silence against people. And actually, speaking of where I learned that, I had such a fuckboy boyfriend in
Oh
college.
gosh.
Yes, shout out to the UFC, knows exactly, everybody that went to school knows exactly what I'm talking about. Such a fuckboy.
Oh boy.
But what a great example for me to learn from. This is how you don't date. But what I had learned in terms of weaponizing silence was from that encounter. He would literally break up with me around every holiday, spring break, Christmas break. And
Oh
people
my
could say,
gosh.
like, you should know better. It was like my first real boyfriend. I didn't date in
Yeah.
high school. And I was young. Who cares? And I just remember it was like the third time he had done it, and it was the same song and dance of like, baby, please, on his knees, take me back. And I just remember
Oh God.
my my spirit left my body, and I was just like, this feels like deja vu. And then when I finally returned back to the room and noticed where he was just freaking the fuck out because he was like, oh my God, hit me, spit at me, do something. And I had never seen him do that. I'm like, oh. I have power like over you when I'm
Yeah.
silent, right? Which is so fucked up. It is very fucked up. So then I started doing this thing where I'm like, when I'm not going to yell at you, I'm not going to hit you, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to go fucking quiet. And so I would say, the hurt for me and the thing that you and I talked about later was I just felt really let down around like, why didn't she tell me these things? And I felt like I was just abandoned, right?
Hmm.
And so my way of processing it was I'm just going to be really cold and silent towards you. And mind you, like when you live with someone, that's super fucked up. Like to be silent towards someone in their
Yeah.
house. And I remember when we did finally sit down, and I feel like you gave me a pretty good amount of grace of like, no, it's okay. Like I did this thing. And I was like, no, I need you to hear me when I say, like, I apologize for that because that is not comfortable. Like silence hurts way more than someone screaming at you. Way
Yeah.
more. Way
Yeah.
more. Yeah. So, what do you think? So, it took us how many years to talk it through?
I mean, I remember that we lived together for at least a year in silence.
Shitty.
It was the Cold War, girl.
It was really the Cold War. And that was literally, that was my like weapon of mass destruction. That was totally on me.
And I was and I was like and at the time because I was grieving my dad. My dad had just died and I was just like, oh my gosh, like is she ever gonna talk to me? Like I don't and I didn't know how to like approach you because I felt bad because I couldn't be there for you
Yeah.
because in business and personally because emotionally I was gutted because my dad was my best friend, like he was, my North Star, really, like he was my mentor, my guide, and when I lost them, I lost my direction and
For
my
sure.
like anchor. So I couldn't be there for you, emotionally or in business because I was like going through all of this, and that's when things really dissolved and whatever and the silence began, and I was like I don't have the energy to figure out how to make the situation better, so we just like were
Yeah.
silent.
Yeah. You know what? As you're talking, what came up to me is when it broke for me, where the Cold War on my end, where I weaponized the silence, was you were going, obviously, everything with your dad happened. I think by this time he passed away. We stopped doing the business, but we were still figuring out the friendship thing, living together. So
Yeah.
it wasn't bad yet. Um, and I just remember, and I know that it was coming from a place of like, this was your capacity. But I remember I was something had happened with someone. I think it was someone I was dating at the time. And I think it felt trivial to you because of what you were going through. But I was like, I just need my best for, my friend right
Yeah.
now. And I just remember your response to it was just like, I mean, I know that's probably hurtful to you, but like, I just lost my dad, and like,
Yeah.
I just remember being like, oh, like on one end, I'm just like, I had lost my dad probably a year before that. So I'm like, I get that, but also it feels not great because I'm like, does my stuff not matter anymore? And, whatever. And so that's when the moment where I was like, oh, okay. And I remember, asking someone like, am I crazy for this? Or like, no, that's not the best response because both
Yeah.
of your guys' stuff could exist. But I even think back to when I lost my dad a year before that or a year and a half before that. I was a fucking psychopath. Like I was I did not have any chill, and that's just how I deal with things. And I didn't have capacity for other people's stuff. I
Yeah.
didn't. But I remember that being really hurtful. And I was just like, oh, there's no room for me in this friendship. And that was the breakdown for me.
Yeah.
Cause I was like, that didn't feel great, but in a weird way, I understand, but I also don't.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I apologize because I remember, and that's why I said I wasn't, I didn't have like the emotional capacity to be your friend, wasn't fair to you. But, everyone grieves differently, and I just couldn't, and it doesn't make it, it wasn't a nice thing to say, obviously. And I wish I could have, been there for you. Um, but it was, I think, yeah, that was like the tipping point where, and I also realized, it's like, oh, I can't be there. Like before I had realized I can't be there like in business, and then it was like, oh, I can't be there as a friend. And then, and because it was so, it had just happened, so I didn't have like, I wasn't even I was just, like
You're in the
running around.
world.
I wasn't, I couldn't even believe it. And because my dad was so far in Puerto Rico, like it didn't even feel real. Like it was just crazy time, and I didn't know how to handle it. And it just was like such, like those months, and this was all happening together, and it was
Yep.
just too much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And it's like, to your point of, people think of business as, oh, it's just business and the personal. I think that's exactly why I got into the work through at burning myself out of building
Yeah.
businesses in a way that really dishonors the human side. It's like, you can't stop your personal life just because
Yeah.
you are building your business. You don't have control over that shit. And if I look at since when we started building this and during a boom of entrepreneurship for really young people,
Yeah.
we were fed such a toxic version of it. And I think that also is a part of the lack of communication too. So we hinted at this a little bit, but it maybe took us what, 2 years to talk again,
Yeah.
maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
We're both in Chicago. I'm now building my second business with other co-founders. You're working at a startup in Chicago, and we sit down and like have a coffee, right?
Yeah.
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 And I just remember, and I would be curious about for you, I just remember being like, on one end, being like, I'm still a little hurt by that, but also like once we finally talked, I'm like, that was so stupid. Like I remember entering the conversation where I'm like, I've had enough time to think about what I did wrong for sure. And still had some of the things because we never had any closure or anything like
No.
that.
No.
We literally moved out of our apartment. We're not friends and talk. It was just,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
awful. Um, and I just remember after we sat down and we both came there. I don't feel anyone was defensive. I think
No.
we just said our truths to like, this is what it felt like for me and how it hurt. And then I just remember walking away, like, not feeling like a big thing was lifted off my shoulder, but more of like, wasted a lot of time. Because to your
Yeah.
point, I'm like, we were such good friends. And it was just like, but why? That's how I felt. How was it for you?
I I definitely felt really like I remember going on my way there, like, and um I really did, like, I remember I was ready to like apologize and all of that. Like I didn't want to like get into the details of like what happened. Like I just wanted for us to be okay, even if it was like, and I mean, I didn't have the expectation that we would, be the same type of friends that we were at the time, but I just wanted to be okay and not, because I was like, sometimes like we were in the entrepreneurship circle, and like there were a few times that I would like see you from across the room, and like I couldn't even say hello to you because I was like, I don't want to be like, hi, hi,
And also,
and
when I'm in that state, I do not like, when I don't fuck with someone, I do not give off friendly vibes. Usually people are like, no
yeah,
way. And I've had
no,
friends in Mexico City, like, there was one person that did some fucked up shit here. And I'm like, I will literally say what's up, but it will feel so cold.
yeah,
I will acknowledge your existence, but they're like, oh my God, let me not
yeah,
fuck up with you.
yeah.
So I
And
understand.
And I knew that, and I didn't want to get the ice because
We don't want the ice.
I had it for a year, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't like emotionally take it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be okay. You know, I wanted to be okay. I still
Hmm.
cared about you a lot.
Yeah.
And I missed that friendship. I missed you. I missed the friendship. And I just wanted us to be okay. So I went into the coffee date thinking, you know, like no defensiveness, nothing, like just wanna tell her how I feel, listen to her, and, you know, obviously I'm sorry for whatever I did that made her feel, you know, upset. So I was like going at it with that attitude, which, you know, if I guess is the way to go because
Yeah.
otherwise we would have had a fight and not be sitting here
Exactly. You know, 10,
today on
10
this
years
day.
later.
Yeah.
Well, more than 10 years. But
Mhm.
yeah, I hear you on that. So then we're cool. Relationship's not the same again yet, but I'm curious as to through that journey and when you think about it now, is there anything you would go back and do differently?
I would definitely be more straightforward on the communication. I think there was probably a great way for me to tell you that I wasn't ready and that I was going through personal things and I couldn't carry on instead of like taking the back seat and like, you know, sort of rolling for a little bit and then throwing myself out of the car. That's definitely something that I would do differently. The way that I communicated in terms of the business and just not letting I mean, hindsight is 2020,
Yeah, you
you
have to
know,
go through
because I was
whatever you
like,
got to go
I
through.
wouldn't let myself get overwhelmed. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
But
Okay, but
yeah, because I feel like everything that was like happening was like bottling up inside of me, and that's probably why I was like, Alex, I don't want to listen to you
for
and
sure.
worry in your things, because I just was so frustrated and sad and that it was just a lot, and I wish I would have been a little bit more centered to be able to communicate, hey, I'm not ready. Just
Mm.
I need to crawl under a rock and I won't be available for a few months.
Right. And I love that you mentioned that again. It's like this is hindsight being 2020, knowing
Yeah,
that and I've said this before in this podcast, I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. I do believe
hmm.
that. And like
Me
you have
too.
to go through your experiences, even if it's something that might hurt someone else. I don't think that I on my end, I knew that was never the intention. But when I think about what I could have done differently, I think it was more of the aftermath of and something, thank God for therapy. I realized I did this with my dad. I was an ice queen when I felt like you can't show up for me the way I need you to. So I'm going to block you out. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was just taking that childhood trauma and bringing it to our friendship and became an icy bitch. And it's really uncomfortable when you're living with someone and you're going through your shit and being cold to them and not talking to them. And so I think that's something that hindsight and something I've had to learn from is just like you how do you deal with your feelings a little differently even when you're hurting or you have grief
Yeah.
because silence can be really really painful and I knew that so when you think about our co-founder relationship and the first business, what do you feel it taught you about yourself as an entrepreneur today? For how do you feel like it shaped where you are in this moment?
I do think that it sort of gave me, I don't know. I think I always knew that I wanted to have my own business and like I was always entrepreneurial and I always wanted, quite creative. I'm creative spice. Like,
You are
and
creative space.
so it gave me sort of like, even though like it had all of this like drama around it, it gave me that sort of like idea of like, oh, like I went through it, not successfully, but whatever. I can do this later. I can hone my skills, and I also was able to identify areas, looking back, areas that I wanted to work on, that I wanted to be stronger. And I was really lucky to land in a startup after I graduated. And the founder was amazing. She was a marketing veteran, and I learned a lot from her. And that gave me another side of me that that I didn't know that I had. And I became way more analytical, more data driven, and that was something that I explored more, but I probably wouldn't have felt confident going into a founding team because that startup was just the co-founder and me at the beginning. I wouldn't have had like the confidence to go into that environment if it wouldn't have happened. If our business wouldn't have happened, like I felt comfortable in that environment, and it shaped me. It made me take the next step and then the next step, and that was a building block, and it made me realize also that I'm not just creative spice. Like there's also other things that I'm really good at that I don't need to be in a company and be, CMO or CO, and like that's all I do because there's other stuff that I'm good at, and it works together. I mean, and that's why I have my own company because I like to do other things too. I don't just do marketing, and I don't just do creative side of marketing. Actually, I do more of like the analytical side of things. But yeah, it sort of gave me the confidence to go into entrepreneurship and just keep going at it, I guess.
I love that. I think kind of similar to what you said, it actually taught me because I was a CEO of our company, and then the next company I was in, I was like CMO, interim COO at times. And it allowed me to actually, because when I was younger, I was a super creative kid, super creative. And then hyperachieving
Mhm.
through trauma came, and then I kind of abandoned that side of me. And so it's cool because I'm like, I get to think more creatively now, and I get
Yeah.
to allow myself to experience that. And it felt amazing. And seeing because also my next co-founders, I didn't know them before we went into business together. A mentor of mine introduced me. And so it was just like, oh, this is complimentary. And I think it's kind of sometimes a disadvantage when you're going into business with people you know already, because you're
Yeah.
being a little bit more hypersensitive to, oh, they should just know or whatever, where it's people you don't
Yeah.
know. It's like, no, we're starting from scratch. I don't know. Tell me. So it forced
Yeah.
communication, I would say. But I would also say, again, that was supposed to happen. And it also, to your point around like direction, it got me super focused on here's where we're going. And here's, which is funny, that's what Get Shit Done's all about now. It's like, you need to be focused on a goal. How are you going to get there? How are we breaking it
Yeah.
down? How can you do it in a way that aligns with how you feel? And it's alignment with you and how you do things. But let's make sure that we're getting to those benchmarks. I would also say after that experience, it made me realize how much as we were growing and scaling, and another reason Get Shit Done exists is doing it in alignment with your values and realizing
Hmm.
I'm like, I am that quote, stubborn on the vision, flexible on the details. I'm super stubborn. And there was a point where in my last company we got, and I just didn't believe in the direction we were going anymore based on the vision. And I'm like, I'm the odd person out, and some other shit that went down, which is for another episode. Whereas like I am out. And it actually made me realize over time, because another trope we heard growing businesses, and still today you hear this, it's like, you need to have a co-founder. You need to have a co-founder.
Yeah.
And for this stage that I'm in, I do great with team and partnerships, but I
Yeah.
actually thrive as the solo founder now
Mm-hmm.
in this stage of my life. And I wouldn't go back and change anything about before, but I'd realize I'm like, oh no, I'm really good at delegating it and being
Yeah.
like, this is where we're going. Don't fuck with the vision because I will fight you
Yeah.
for it. So I would say that's where I landed and what I learned from that first experience. But as we wrap up, I would just love for you to think about for other founders going through co-founder stuff, or
Mm-hmm.
whether it's they're going through some shit with their co-founder
Yeah.
or they're considering a co-founder, what would your advice be to them based on our experience?
If you're considering a co-founder, I would say, find someone who's complementary, yes. You're clear on what each of you are gonna do and your values align and you share a vision and you got, and you're willing to communicate. But also, very much like a marriage, you have to be aware that people change, people go through things, people grow, people want to explore other things that can be within the company or maybe outside, and things might change. So you have to be accepting and understanding of that person, and there has to be a level of trust and kindness and grace that lives in that relationship. And the other part of this question was if you're going through something, if you're going through something, sometimes it's hard when you're in it and your feelings are in the feels and you feel hurt. And at this point, you know this person. But take a step back and think about what's at stake and try to figure out the most, kind way that you can handle the situation. Because I think sometimes there is this urge to, do something and like act and react. But this is a long-term, hopefully a long-term relationship, and you need to measure your words and think about how can we move the relationship forward with kindness. So definitely communicate at the end of the day, communication, and just say it. Say what's on your mind kindly and try to understand the other person.
Yeah, you summarized so much of what I was going to say. So I'll just piggyback off of, I totally agree. I look at co-founder relationships and partnerships of any kind, even if it's a
Hmm.
business partnership and you're not co-founders, it is you're kind of dating for marriage, right? And it is, if we're going to be in this relationship together, I say this all the time now, of people think about their romantic partners and when things implode, it's like, you're not the person I married, or you're
I
not the
thought you
person
were.
I thought
Yeah.
you were. And it's like, but they shouldn't be,
Yeah.
because then they didn't grow. And I think there's a
Hmm.
difference between people's values and being fundamentally good people, which we were, but it's
Yeah.
just like people should have the grace to grow. And
Hmm.
that growth might not include some of the ideas you had about where the relationship would progress. So I totally agree with that. It's like, give people grace to grow and understanding in that process that it might not always look like you doing it together or being in that
Yeah.
moment or that thing together. I think about Will Smith and Jada, and I don't really care what anyone thinks about them. I think they're dope. Let them live their lives the way they want. Um, but he said, like, I think it was their 25th anniversary, had posted something where it was just like, the moment I really started loving you was the moment I stopped trying to make you be what I needed you to be for me. And it's just nurturing your dreams. And something I think about with the partnerships I'm in today, romantic, business, it's just like, we're here co-creating our dreams together, and both of our dreams can exist, and they might
Yeah.
not always be on the same page or be together, and that's okay. And then I would say the next thing for me that really helped in my my second co-founder relationships, because there was two, was in the beginning, which I wish we would have continued doing, we would have like monthly check-ins just to sit down, have drinks, and say, okay, based on where we're at today, how are you feeling? Based on what's
Mm,
evolving in the business, what feels good to you? What do you want to do? What do you not want to do?
yeah,
And you might be in a position where you still have to wear all the hats. But I think to your point, communicating through this is what's coming up for me.
yeah.
And it's creating, I think to your point around communication, I think we talk about that so much in every type of relationship, but I'm like, you have to create the space and the parameters for
Yeah.
communication too.
You have to create the space. Also, you have to have the clarity in your
Mm-hmm.
heart and in your mind of what you want and what you need out of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have that clarity, you're not going to be able to communicate effectively.
Period. Period. So I think we can say just communicate and whatnot,
Communicate.
communication.
Communication.
But it's like, yes, to your point, you need to be clear. I think it's so easy for us to go in like, what does the other person need to do? But it's like, you have to be clear about what your
What
needs
you
are
want.
too
Yeah.
and what you want. Because we're only responsible for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. And I know I did this with you. It was so easy to just point the finger, but it's just like, but what do I need to carry? What can I control? And
Mhm.
then for founders that are going through it right now with their co-founders, just echoing a little bit of what you said, like it is again creating parameters where you can bring it up and you have to, if you want any successful, your co-founder relationship is basically being married.
Yeah.
Any type of, even if it's not marriage, long-term partnership, you have to talk about the ugly, messy shit. And
Yeah.
you better get used to it. If you can't do that, I don't think you can have a co-founder. No, not even I don't think
Yeah.
you cannot have a co-founder. It
And
won't work.
is co-founder prenup a thing?
I think so. I mean, that's when I think for absolutely. I think when you do like the agreements around who has equity, but not every
Yeah.
business is structured that way. But yes, let us know, y'all. In the like,
Mm,
can we start doing co-founder prenups?
prenups, yeah.
I love this. I
Yeah.
love this. Well, Frico, I'm so grateful for you. I feel like we've come such a long way, and I feel like our relationship really shaped the way I am in business today, for better or worse.
Yeah.
I feel like I learned a lot around how I wanted to be and how I did not want to be, even though that did not happen overnight. It took years for me to be like, oh, I fucked
Yeah.
up here. Like, this is on me. Because one thing I do say to people is just like, what did an ex tell me when I was hiring and firing a lot of people? This was like 2020. He was like, what's the common denominator, Alex? And I'm like, fuck you, but so
Ooh.
true. Like
Ooh.
2 hours later, I was so mad at him, but then 2 hours later, I was like, you're fucking right.
Mm,
So I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for my first experience in business and building with you. I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for our friendship and where we're both at today.
I'm really grateful. I love that you still call me Frico. My daughter calls you Auntie Frico.
Fricos! That's what we used to call each other. People are probably like, why do they keep saying frico? Yeah, we called each other that in college and today.
Um, yeah. And yeah, I just want to say I'm very grateful to have you in my life, to have
Same.
had you at that time that it was so different, and to have you now that it's completely
So
different.
different.
And I'm really proud of everything that you've built, and just I'm just very grateful for everything we went through and everything that we've learned together.
Same. Fricos forever. Love this for us.
Yeah.